friends, and welcome to ArcNeo story time, I guess. Um, Something I've kind of wanted to do for a little while, actually. I figured I would tell the story of the single absolute worst dungeon master I have ever played under. And, spoiler warning, actually, that dungeon master was me. um, So yeah, this is actually kind of the story of the first time I ever ran D&D. Now, this was back in while I was still playing 4th edition actually. Hence my, 4th edition books here. And yes, this is actually a video, not just, a static picture. Haha. But yeah, to kind of set where things were, I was at a table of 4 players, and we were doing a rotating dungeon master. So, yes, technically, every player character was at some point in this campaign a DMPC, which I know, oh, horrible, evil. It actually worked out pretty well. I'm going to give us credit that whenever one of us took over as DM, I didn't see anyone just start milking the game to power their character up, which was nice actually. But so we had just got done going through an altered version of Curse of Strahd, and shout out to Kevin, my original DM, the guy who started me playing. He ran that. It was completely awesome. But the thing was that basically whenever the current dungeon master was getting to the end of their session, the end of their line, they would go to whoever was next in line and basically just go, okay, I'm getting ready to end. What do you need me to, what do you need set up for your story arc that you're going to run? I didn't even go too crazy there. Literally, it was that we found a couple rings. And, I also had this thing that, we didn't actually kill Strahd because of the way he ran it. We actually more freed the people of Barovia from the horrors because he was actually drawing from the Earth Dawn role-playing system when he ran. That's probably going to be a story time in and of itself. It was really cool. Also, Earth Dawn is a great alternative to D&D. I really recommend trying it out. But, that aside, so we didn't kill Strahd. We weren't trying to kill Strahd. We ended up saving the people of Barovia from these way worse evils. And in part of bringing Strahd to our world, he had lost his powers and he became Gideon, his real former self. And, we also found 4 rings. So more or less, those were the things I needed for the game. Was Strahd didn't die, and we find 4 rings. Starts out pretty strong, and then I went and I started really digging in to running this. I was excited to actually run this. I was nervous as heck. I still get nervous when I'm DMing. But I was really excited, so I started, working on getting the worlds built. And because 2 of the players had been, they were longtime D&D people, it really mattered to me that I did something really homebrew and custom. And this is probably what bit me in the butt. But, so I ended up coming up with this idea of a new form of these horrors. And one of the things that followed them around was red residuum or residium. I can't think of the word right now, but basically 4th edition had crystallized magic in it that you used for, magic items. They had a red version that was like hyper potent. And so it was a thing actually where while I was running, if you gathered enough of this stuff and you made an item, temporarily you had a overpowered, like literally overclocked magic item on your character. And I did this on purpose because the other thing that I really drew from was my favorite set of Magic the Gathering cards, which was Rakdos. To this day, I'm still a Rakdos player. In the few times that I actually play Magic the Gathering, I've actually gotten rid of almost all my cards except for my Rakdos collection. I still have that. So, I take in this Rakdos thing where a lot of the enchantments in Magic the Gathering for Rakdos, it lowers your defense and raises your attack. So I had these creatures, these horrific looking things that if their health got low enough, like you'd hear their bones break and like these crystals of red, crystallized magic or whatever, like that would just like break out of their skin and suddenly they had more attack and higher and lower defenses. And I want to say personally, I think the first session of that went well. I actually ended up probably to backtrack here. So what I should have covered. I know this is all out of order, but the first thing that I did was create the holy city of. I want to say we called it Kisseltirith back then. A lot of things happened with that city, including it getting destroyed and rebuilt and renamed in the rebuilding. But, we had Kisseltirith, the holy city of Bahamut. It was more or less, if you imagine Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings, basically take that, but instead of it being built into the side of a cliff, imagine it just being like on top of a hill in the middle of a flat, barren, nothing plains. Justification being that like 90% of its denizens are winged dragonborn. So, yes, just being out on top in the middle of a clear field was the most advantageous place for them, because what are you going to do when the sky gets dark from 1,000 winged dragonborn attacking you? But, I created this place, and like, if you ever were allowed to go to the top tower of, this city, that was where Bahamut himself would come down and meet you had you been summoned. Otherwise, he would actually just kill you for desecrating that tower by being there uninvited. There was a lot of fun lore I had built for it on the fly. And to be honest, this has been long enough ago. Like, some of the other stuff might have been interjected by other players at this point, so I don't want to take 100% credit, but this is what I remember. Unfortunately, I'm going off memory of something I've actively tried to forget. So the thing was, I had this holy city. There was a library of near infinite knowledge in it that was actually curated by a beholder that had a monocle on one of his eye stalks, and instead of just using, telekinesis or something to move books or do things, he would instead control a fleet of magical white silk gloves that went around the library and did things for him, including him trying to shake your hand, and he would get like really sad if you didn't shake the glove when he presented it to you, because he didn't even understand that he was this monstrous beholder. He thought he was just some guy. But, so, we had this cool, fun, holy city. It got attacked by these things, which, like, literally just a giant red rock would be launched at the city, and when it hit, these creatures would spill out. Again, to this day, I still say I did kind of alright on the first session. The problem was that first session not being a dumpster fire probably got me a little too excited. And, the thing was, like, we'd run about, I want to say you ran probably about 10, 15 or so sessions in your story arc, then pass it on to the next person. I got really excited. I had planned a ton of stuff. I had overplanned a ton of stuff. And I made the cardinal DM sin of making things have to go a certain way for things to progress. And this might be a bit of an anticlimax, but the short version is my first session, it went fairly okay. Second, third, and fourth sessions, it just went downhill so fast because they kept thinking, they found holes in my plot left and right because I didn't know how to plot. And to be fair, no one was being a jerk about it. They only were kind of addressing them and bringing them up because A, in character, their character thought of this. B, they wanted to help. They're like, okay, hey, here's a hole. You might want to go plug that up really quick. So, no shade to any of the other players. The two longtime guys in particular, Kevin and his brother, they were super helpful. But it ended up where, like, the longer it went on, the more I realized that I had gone just way too specific in the outcomes. And I ended up taking, like, what was supposed to be, like, a long, couple month arc to play through. I fast forwarded the heck out of it. I think I cut it short to only being, like, I want to say I only actually did 5 sessions. I just kind of fast forwarded things. The final battle was a disaster because first the boss monster was underpowered, and I had expected for him to actually lose because then he was going to do a thing and become overpowered. And then, the players were going to use their rings to seal this guy away. Except I had done nothing to foreshadow or hint at the fact they might need to do that. And I basically just had to tell the cleric that's what he needed to do. Just like, Arcana check. This is 4th edition, so I want to say he had like a plus 20 to his Arcana check at this point. Yes, we were min-maxing the min-max edition. It was fun. We actually had a good time with it, so... But, he basically, I gave him this role that was impossible for him to fail. Just told him the solution. They killed the bad guy. And... yeah, I actually had lost enough self-esteem as a dungeon master from that, where I almost stopped playing D&D right then and there. Because it's like, it was a rule at that table where if you're going to play at that table, at some point, being a DM is going to get passed to you. And I'm totally fine with that. That's a good rule to have, honestly, for a long-running session or long-running group, I should say. I actually still hold that rule. It's like, hey, if you're going to play at this table for too long, okay, I'm going to need a break from DMing. One of you guys run a, 1 or 2 session game. So, it's a good rule, but yeah, good lord, I cannot express how, like, if it could have gone wrong, it did go wrong. There were key, important story bits that I either did a terrible job of leading them to, or I didn't even think of it myself. There was, my creature balance was terrible. Like, I was worried I was making them too strong, and they were always weak as all heck. Then I tried to buff them, and that didn't actually do anything. So, and to be fair, I did actually tell Kevin after I passed passed it on, to the next player. I'm like, I don't think I ever want to do this again. And, again, not being harsh, not being a jerk or anything. He's like, well, you know the rule. If when it comes your time to DM again, you say no, we will have to ask you to leave the table. And I won't lie, I was pretty annoyed when I heard that, but it's like, okay, there's 4 of us here at the table. It's gonna be a while. I'll play until then. I actually fully intended on getting myself kicked out, but by the time it came back around, I was feeling... Basically, by then, I had learned to kind of fly by the seat of my pants. So, nowadays, the whole way that I will prep for any kind of RPG system is a whole lot of stuff where I account for variables. I make things that I'm able to move. So, say they don't go into the cave, but they go over here and, explore the forest. I'm like, oh, you find a ruin. And then somewhere in the ruins will be a door that they find that goes into the cave that I needed them to find. Or, something usually far less specific, to be honest. But, thankfully I did... I at least want to say I managed to learn from that. But kind of the key takeaway here is I cannot explain enough. First timers. 1, don't worry about doing something cliche with your first story arc of a campaign. It's to be expected, and you're probably better off doing something a little bit simpler and more straightforward, just so that it's easier to maintain and run. As well as make sure whatever you have planned is mobile. I had gone way too specific on things so that you had to go to specific locations because I had just hyper designed them. And, I did not have, plot dodging players. They, especially because it was my first time, they were trying to follow along with me, They were trying to help me with this. But I couldn't literally just go, you guys have to turn around, you missed the important thing, And so they missed tons of important things, and it was because of me. So don't hyper plan and make things specific. Make sure anything you have planned is mobile. Somehow, some way, make it mobile. As well as, especially when you're early in DMing, no matter how much work you do, how hard you plan and practice and prep and everything else, at some point your game is going to turn into an absolute dumpster fire. This happens to us all. It's going to happen again at some point even. You need to be able to roll with it and bounce back. That's probably actually the biggest thing here. My reaction to when it went bad is actually the worst part of it all. Because I was about to just be a massive jerk to everyone, frankly. Just wait till they tried to have me run the game again and then just bounce. Don't do that. Don't even think about doing that. Yeah, I know, rambly. Again, unfortunately, a lot of these stories I don't have any notes left over from. I did take some notes here and there, but I don't have the notes anymore. So I have to kind of do this all, off the top of my head, off the cuff. But hopefully there's at least some takeaway here of... Because, nowadays, I'm fairly comfortable as a DM. I'm actually recording this the night after running my first game of Call of Cthulhu. I ran a one-shot in a completely homebrew session that was a custom continuation of the Alone Against the Flames, solo adventure, and it went well. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm the best Call of Cthulhu, keeper of arcane knowledge or whatever the game master is called in that game. I'm not going to say I'm the best, but I managed to jump into a system I hadn't really played, but I kept, because of, the things I learned from when I botched the heck out of this, it actually still gave me the tools to be able to run something new and have it not go bad. Because again, it's like, make things obvious, don't make things too, area specific, don't worry about being too cliche. That really is like the three most important things for any game master of any sort. So, again, hopefully there's at least some interestingness or point to this overly long video. I'm probably not going to do too many more of these story times until without it, like, going into the newer campaign stories that I'm in, because those are fresher, and there are actually some notes still surviving for those to get the story a little bit less scattered. But, hopefully this at least had some interest, and, new DMs, learn from my mistakes. Don't do what I did. Don't be me. There are a lot of reasons to not be me, but here you have a couple specific examples of why you don't want to be me. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. More normal content to come soon. See ya.